A heat map of phones connected to the Russian mobile network in Ukraine. Basically, this is able to show us the approximate number of Russian troops in the country right now. So at this very moment in time, there did seem to be a slight weak point just moving down south to Crimea. That now makes you wonder if this is like being updated possibly live. There's really not much here in the north at all. I mean, we saw them slowly retreating over the last few weeks. I don't think they care about this stuff anymore. But then there's this big elephant in the room, this giant red bubble. This is clearly what they think is the most important right now. Does this technically work on navies as well? It seems like any red dot is mostly near the coast, maybe except for that one. I'm actually surprised you're allowed to bring in your mobile device into battle. You'd just think the generals would have thought about this and kept all the phones back at home. Although these could be the troops themselves that are bringing their phones and not listening to orders. That's definitely a possibility. Also, hold up. What is with these red dots near Moldova? These guys are way behind enemy lines. And here are all the countries providing humanitarian aid to Ukraine right now. I'm just gonna jump right into it. What's China doing? I expected all these other places, but definitely not China. I mean, I guess they could just be providing something tiny. That would technically count. Seems like the only places in Europe not providing anything is Belarus, since they're a Russian ally. Andorra, I mean, that's a tiny city-state. And then Bosnia? Why is Bosnia staying out of this? I am also curious what Brazil is providing as well, because they are part of the BRICS alliance, or I know it's just like an economic thing, but it's still interesting. Kazakhstan is also pretty crazy. So aid in this case can be both financial and material, such as medical supplies, food, clothing, etc. Christianity in the US by county. The way this information is displayed, I didn't realize just how split it actually was throughout the country. In my state of California, it's mostly Catholicism that's dominating, and then all throughout the Southwest, like Arizona, New Mexico, and the southern part of Texas, they're also pretty Catholic. Then there's the Northeast, which is very Catholic as well. Explains why I'm seeing so many Catholic churches around these areas. And then all throughout the Deep South, it is extremely Protestant. The one outlier is the southern part of Louisiana, which I find fascinating. I'm assuming this must stem from like the French roots that this part has. Florida also very divided. It seems like a majority, it might be Protestant, but it's close. And of course, a whole lot of Mormonism, but I didn't know the Mormonism extended up into like Idaho. That was pretty far up, even a chunk of Wyoming as well. Oh, and Nevada, and you can even see small stretches of it in Arizona. Of course, just as a reminder, this is only including Christianity by US county. Not all religions or non-religions are included. What a new map of NATO might look like in the near future. So obviously we have all the current members, most of Europe, the UK, France, Germany, Spain, Italy. Yes, we've seen all these before, but as of recently, both Sweden and Finland have expressed interest in joining. This would also mean nearly 200 years of Swedish neutrality finally ending. Finland, who is also pretty neutral, but you know, they were attacked by the Soviet Union like only a couple decades ago. During the Cold War, they tried to stay out of it though. This would bring down the neutral countries of Europe from 5 to only 3. And the thing is, I mean, Austria, Switzerland, and Ireland, they're kind of far away. They don't have to worry. This would bring in a whole nother NATO border they'd have to worry about, because obviously the Baltics have joined, and then Turkey's a part of it as well down here. I wonder if the memes finally got to them. They finally swayed public opinion. I've been seeing memes specifically mention Finland and Sweden joining NATO for months now. They might have made an impact. Here's a chart showing senators per 1 million people by state. So if you didn't know, in the US, every state, all 50, get 2 senators each. So technically our senators in California hold the least power because there's the most amount of people in this state, and then that just goes up by population level. This is pretty much just a population state map, but in reverse. And this is why Wyoming is number 1, because less than 1 million people actually live in Wyoming. So with a population of 500,000 and 2 senators, a voter in Wyoming has 68 times more influence than a voter in California with 2 senators and a population of 40 million. So voting for senator in Wyoming is actually a really big deal. Then again, this whole thing was kind of by design in the first place. The continent of Europe mapped by the number of trees. And it looks like the NATO alliance is going to get a whole lot of trees that come with it. How do we know how many trees are out there? That's the big question. Who is tasked with the job to just roam the landscape and then do like a little tally mark every time they see like anything come out of the ground? Also, what defines a tree? How big does it have to be? What if it's like a baby tree? What is a tree? These could just be seen as anything that can be used as lumber, so anything possible, maybe even small trees. There are apparently 3 trillion mature trees in the world. I didn't even realize that Denmark has no trees. What happened to Denmark? And the Dutch are basically below sea level, so this is understandable. It's hard for trees to grow underwater. Slovenia has a ton of trees, and I'm not exactly sure why. I guess the former Yugoslavian countries just had a lot kind of back in the day. I like how Kazakhstan's randomly included on the map. Kazakhstan's such a big country, yet they have less than 10,000 trees. I guess it's understandable. middle, I don't see a whole lot of trees whenever I Google Kazakhstan, believe it or not. Interesting that Slovenia, in terms of land area, is so small, but yet it's second in the charts here. Same for this country as well. Kazakhstan has only 2,000 trees? What? The change in house prices in U.S. counties between 2000 and 2021, I'm actually going to assume trees are going to be very happy about this. I would think that trees probably aren't big fans of houses. This sucks for everybody else, though. Increase in average price. Some of them have increased, some of these counties, by more than 340% over the last 20 years. Some places have tripled. Pretty much all places in the western states. It's all like a deep, dark red over here. There's the middle of the country, very flat areas. If you don't want to deal with that, though, I might need to think about moving to Kansas. Texas is completely split down the middle. I think they've kind of gone with the theme of being like in the heartland. So West Texas, still very cheap. East Texas, definitely the areas near cities, not so much. They've skyrocketed. In the deep south, it's really going to depend. It's like sprinkled in. And there's Florida, which is absolutely insane. Definitely, if you're along a coastline, you got to believe that real estate market is skyrocketing. Surprisingly, the Northeast hasn't raised as much as I would have thought, at least comparatively to all these other states. I mean, this is a pretty popular area. And in the Midwest, it's not terrible either. It's actually really good. What is up with this map, though? Where are the Great Lakes? Are people buying houses on the Great Lakes? So if you want to buy a house, basically go to Alaska. That's your only option. What do Indian households own? Percentage of households that own consumer products. So only about 7.5% own a car, but yet 93% of population owns a mobile device. Also, I've been seeing it's hot as hell in India, so owning a fan is probably pretty crucial just for survival and everything. Only 49% have internet, but so many have a mobile device. And then only 18 have a washing machine. I mean, I guess you could just do it the old school way. There's always like a desire in me that wants to do clothes washing the old school way. Just dump it in some soapy water and then hang it up. It seems pretty simple. How old is James Bond, or the age of the actors portraying James Bond at the film's release? So the first one, Sean Connery, was relatively young, coming out. The first movie, he was only 32. I don't know much about Bond. I had no idea this actor briefly played the role in 1970, and then Sean Connery came back. So the average age started to be around 44, and now we're above 44 with Roger Moore. This dude played James Bond for such a long time. I didn't know that either. He was 57 years old. That was the oldest. This guy, Timothy Dalton, was only in 2, and then there was a little gap in James Bond. Pierce Brosnan takes over the role in the 90s, and then Daniel Craig, who's been it for a very long time. Has he been Bond for? Yeah, he has been. The longest tenure, 15 years. They were making so many Bond movies back in the day. You're talking like one every 3 years or something like that. Here's the same chart except for the American James Bond, or Batman. In a weird way, I can see that. Batman is our James Bond. It's the old school Adam West, who played his first movie in 1960 something. He was 37 at that time. I didn't know he was 37. Then there was like no Batman movies for 2 decades until Michael Keaton. He was under 40 and then 41 in Batman Returns. We had one with Val Kilmer, who's 36, and George Clooney in the best Batman movie ever, Batman and Robin. He was like 37. I think George Clooney was an alright Bruce Wayne. It was just it's an interesting movie. We have American Psycho himself. He started at 31, and by the time the trilogy was over, he was only 38. Man, he looked old in that last movie. How the hell was Ben Affleck was so old? 48? And yet he was looking pretty good. And then finally, Robert Pattinson was 35 in the new movie, The Batman. I can't believe Christian Bale was actually the youngest Batman at 31. Crazy that Ben Affleck never got his own solo Batman movie. The original patent from 1891 for toilet paper rolls show the correct rolling direction in case you ever doubted it. They always intended you to put the paper on the outside, like for it to roll away from whatever structure or wall. I don't know why I needed to know this, but it's nice that the debate has finally been settled and can begin world peace processes immediately. Sometimes I don't even put toilet paper like on one of those roller thingies. You just kind of set it down behind the toilet, just like, yeah. The Egyptian god family tree. I don't know much about the Egyptian god family tree, and I only know a couple of Egyptian gods. I think I might know just as much of Egyptian mythology as I do like Greek and Roman. That just says a lot about how little I know about all of it. So in terms of none here, assume that he was either a self-conception god or he just kind of showed up. So I know Ra, and that's about it. I mean, it's hard to not know Ra. It's kind of hard to just forget that whole look and everything. And then Ra had a lot of kids. Oh, is this why Ra's kids are like all kind of half animals? This guy, how did he come up with... Oh, with Ra came... All right, I like this god. I don't know, they're probably not always portrayed. See, they're portrayed in these cute ways. Is this just a giant monkey? Emotep, I know about him, and I do know Is, but I'm afraid to pronounce that right, just in case. Anubis never had any kids? I actually knew a lot more of these characters than I actually thought. Characters you know, why isn't there like a Marvel Cinematic Universe, but for like all the mythologies? Actually, I'm sure they've tried that and it just went nowhere, but imagine if they did it good. I talk about these population pyramids quite often. This is the USA as of July 1st, 2021. There's actually a female surplus as we get into the older age ranges, like pretty much at like late 50s. That isn't much of a surprise since females live longer than males, but then there's actually a male surplus under younger ages. So pretty much everything under 40 years old. Is this due to the fact that just more males in general are born typically, and then the surplus slowly gets caught up because males do dumb things? I did a lot of dumb things. I probably should have said oof a long time ago. What's up with this dip and then the comeback at 50 right now? Where and it's like on both sides. That's like 1971. Does that have to do with the Nam War? The phenomenon of more males being born than females is actually just a common thing in the mammal species. I didn't even know that. Is it a crime to knock on a door and then run away? I think we call that ding dong ditch. Basically, in all of Europe, you can do this legally. 99% of places are a giant no, and then there's the United Kingdom, which has been illegal since 1839. There's gotta be a funny backstory behind that. I'm just gonna assume that kids have better things to do than to still play this game, I think. Willfully disturbing any inhabitants by pulling or ringing any doorbell or knocking at any door without lawful excuse. But then again, it looks like the UK has actually a lot of weird laws that people don't know about. It actually could be considered illegal in the States since you're technically entering someone's property without their permission. It's not criminal, but it can turn into a crime.
And big thanks to, by saying this, I agree to be a sussy bucka
LuxembourgLover,
Drew's Argentinian
Fat
grandpa,
Nuts,
Alex Whitley is Mega Chad,
Alfonso M6,
aPhatNarwhal,
Angel Bisono,
Barnsky W,
bringbackpolandball,
XD, Jocko,
Majestic Unicorn,
Marco,
Max
Hindera,
Cooper,
Mimoshiki,
Ortin 5610,
Philipp RF,
Robert E,
RyeThePie,
the Mexican 760,
Why am I doing this?
William the Conqueror.
Thank you.